Man, you gotta love the way that intro comes in. It's Busted Pencils, fully leaded. Education talk, educated educators talking education. Oh, civic media people. Yeah, you're out there listening in your car potentially right now. And Jacob, you gotta say, civic media is no longer just Wisconsin. Michigan, Minnesota. Civic media is like a Midwest phenomenon, man, right?
It's getting pretty exciting, Tim, because at this point, we're getting close to every state that is either an M or an upside down M that it starts with being part of the family. So we're growing. We're growing.
Nice, nice. Love it. And so everybody out there who, yeah, this is our Saturday show. And so I know we have people right now who are driving around on Saturday somewhere up there in the Michigan, Minnesota, or the upside down M, Wisconsin. Maybe you're listening in your car, you're listening in your home, maybe you're out at, one of those awesome lakes that are you're surrounded by kicking back, enjoying life, but listening to Busted Pencils. We appreciate you. And of course, our podcast downloaders, we always appreciate where you are and what you're doing and making this show great. But we are so excited. And we'll just say, yeah, Dr. Johnny Lupinacci, yes, he will be here. He's kind of right now, we're giving him a warm up to get ready because he has so much that he wants to offer tonight.
He's in the bullpen right now getting
He's
ready,
in the bullpen warming up, man. We had to give him some time to warm up, but we have a return guest. And, we've had Chris has been a part of Busted Pencils before Civic Media. He's one of our first guests. Yeah, that guy, Chris Tienken, that guy who could say, hey, give me a few socioeconomic factors and don't worry about giving those standardized tests because we can predict your test scores before your kids even take it. Oh, yeah, that guy, he's back. He's an outspoken scholar, thought leader, and critic of education reform, associate professor of leadership management and policy, and just an all-around great guy. He's been a principal, assistant superintendent, director of curriculum, and more. Truly, Jacob, an educated educator, wouldn't you say?
I would absolutely say so.
Yeah. But tonight, we're not gonna. Well, we may get into it, but okay, Chris, welcome back to Busted Pencils. How are you doing, man?
Thank you, Tim. It's great to be here. It's always good to bust some pencils. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I mean, we've been working on this because of sending emails back and forth, through the summer, and you're like, "Well, I've got this, and I'm over here, and I'm, I mean, Chris is a jet setter. Let's be honest. He's, going here and going there. We finally got you lined up, and we're back here because I was watching you on, LinkedIn, different social medias and stuff, and I was noticing that you we're starting to have a little bit of commentary and thoughts on the new thing that's happening in education. That would be artificial intelligence. And I was like, I got to get Chris on to talk about this because, well, Johnny's not here to make fun of me, but as he always says, Tim worships at the Church of Artificial Intelligence. In fact, though, I am now I'm learning and potentially, I'm in the AI seminary, Chris, and hopefully one day we'll become, a minister in the Church of AI. But Chris, AI, teaching and learning, the whole thing, though, first, let me ask you this question. Fad or here to stay?
It's here to stay. It's definitely not a fad. And I say that because Wall Street has completely adopted it, bought into it. It is in the economic structure of the country now. So it is definitely here to stay.
Okay. Tell me more about Wall Street, though, too. I mean, why? What is it about Wall Street that makes you go, okay, look, if Wall Street's in, then sorry, we just got to figure this out. Tell us more about your sense on that.
Well, corporations, corporate America isn't going to spend literally trillions of dollars investing in something that they're not going to get a big payoff from, and that's going to go away in a short time. So, I mean, you can see it with the build out of major data centers all over the country now. You can see it through companies investing in other AI companies. It's everywhere. It's everywhere, and it's making people a lot of money. So that tells me where there's money, there's power. Where there's power, there's staying power.
Hmm. Okay. Not that I needed to believe you, because I feel the same way. The amount of money. In fact, I was just listening to an AI podcast that I listen to, because I need to constantly be given Kool-Aid to keep myself going where I'm at. But it was interesting what you say about the money. I mean, people are paying attention. Really big quote money deal. NVIDIA and Oracle. Here was it this week or the end of last week? Announcement of NVIDIA or Oracle, and then OpenAI, of course, or like billions of dollars of cross type of investments in each other. And according to these guys that I listen to, they're like, what's interesting here is that if you took all of the commitments from all three of these players, none of them actually have the money they've all actually committed to. They're kind of making this commitments based on the going like, we're probably going to make that amount of money in 2 to 3 years when this deal actually goes forward. How do people think about that, Chris? I know we're not into education, but I mean, is that a cause for alarm, like a potential, like going, okay, wait a minute, this could fall apart very quickly then if these guys are truly trading and making monetary decisions with money they don't have?
Well, I think it has everything to do with education, because now you're seeing many products that are now entering the education ecosystem are all marketing themselves with AI
Mm-hmm.
tools. AI powered, AI tools, AI equipped, AI charged. All of these things have now become marketing tools in the education landscape. So I think Wall Street and education are clearly tied.
Mm-hmm.
And look, many of the companies that are selling AI products to education are listed on the stock exchange.
Right.
So that's look at Microsoft, right? Look at Google has their Google Education Suite, right? And they're all backing. Apollo Education is another one that's publicly traded education company. They're all backing and pushing AI products. So there's a lot of money to be made. That doesn't mean that AI cannot be useful.
Mm.
In fact, it can be incredibly useful. But I just think we need to be aware that the goal here is economic, not educational. Where it's economics first, education second. So as educators, we need to be aware of the economic side of things. We need to be aware of what's going on with these companies, so that when we're approached with products, we can do our due diligence to make sure it fits our educational needs, not just the company's economic needs.
All right. So on that, then let's break through then, and kind of admit we're in a safe space here. Chris, are you a user of AI?
Tim, I am a user of AI.
Feels better, doesn't it, to admit it?
I'm free.
You're free, man. Jacob's just sitting there going like, holy crap, that is radio gold right there. Two people who came clean. Jacob?
I think it's beautiful that we can all be honest with each other. And my name is Jacob, and I'm an AI user.
All right, there we go. And for you listeners out there, yeah, Get in touch with us if you're an AI user and you've been afraid to admit it, because we'd like to have you on the show. All right. Yeah, I use it too. And I gotta, I'm as concerned, but at the same time, I'm pretty inspired by what I see is possible with this. And maybe I'll take that twist that back to the kind of the thing, like education reform, standardized testing, measuring kids, quote, on linear accumulation of, factual based knowledge and the ability to repeat that. That's kind of been the marker of saying whether or not you're, quote, educated, whether your school's winning or losing, whether your teachers are good or crappy, was all on these measures. And I'm looking at a couple people who are saying, well, why do we why did we ever care? And now, which guess what? Go back and research a bunch of Busted Pencils episodes way in the past, especially with Chris, where we talked about we shouldn't have cared all those other times. But why would we ever care when, and I'm going to try to phrase this the right way, AI was perfectly designed to do incredibly well on those types of tests. Um, and did we ever really imagine that kids scoring well on some form of memory accumulation really meant that they were learning anyway? And so now we have AI machines, AI tools where actually the accumulation of knowledge, finding knowledge, getting access to it. Ethan Mullick, a guy who I follow a lot right now, is kind of putting out mass intelligence. It's there, it's free. Everything's potentially changed if we're talking about teaching and learning, Chris. Does that make sense?
It does. I think this is a game changer. And I think I remember the first time I used it back in November 2022 when it first came out. And I threw some prompts in there, and I immediately called my daughter, my oldest daughter, who's a junior in high school, and I said, "Do you and your friends know about this tool?" And she said, "No, not yet." I said, "Oh, you will." But as soon as I used it, I saw that there's potential here to get us to where we always wanted to be, in terms of active learning, actually applying knowledge to do something meaningful with it. And I think that's what AI gives. Like you said, it's kind of like this massive accessibility to knowledge. So now we can take it and use it.
Yeah, we can. Our guest, Dr. Christopher Tienken. Yes, we are talking AI, education reform too. Got a lot going on. I don't know. And as we now have come clean, we all have admitted here, Jacob, Chris, and myself, we are AI users, and we now feel free. And we invite all of you to come back and admit that you too are one. Busted Pencils, more when we get back. We're back. Busted Pencils, fully leaded education talk, educated educators talking education. Well, talking AI education. Yeah, we've all come clean. Jacob, our guest, Dr. Chris Tienken, me. We are AI users, and we feel the freedom that comes with admitting to the world that's who we really are. Chris, though, I mean, during the break, you brought up somebody. I know you've done a ton of work with John Dewey. I mean, I know this has been some of the things you were talking about. What do you think John Dewey would say at this moment with AI in front of us? What would he be telling us? Um, yeah, I mean, John Dewey, the father of, what would you say, Chris, the father of progressive education in America?
Well,
Yeah, maybe too much.
Francis Parker
Yeah, I know.
was the father, but so I think John Dewey brought it to the mainstream, brought it
Yeah,
to the forefront. And if you're asking me what would Dewey say,
yeah.
look, I think he would see this as a tool, as a way to free teachers and students from the chains of memorization and regurgitation, and get on to the real learning that he talked about in terms of experiential learning, having students put their knowledge to use. So that, look, that doesn't mean there's no value in memorization and
Mhm.
regurgitation, but I think we've certainly gone way too far with kind of like this knowledge acquisition, knowledge storage mode of education. So now we have the knowledge at our fingertips. We Now it's about teaching students what can you, when you have massive knowledge at your fingertips, how do you approach that knowledge so that you can use it in an effective way? I think that's really where we want to go. And that brings us right into problem-based education.
Yeah. Yeah, thinking about that, it's just like, okay, this is exciting. And again, kind of going back to what I was pointing out, that, so AI can perfectly perform super well on knowledge acquisition. And because, and guess what? It has it all. It's got it there. And that, in one way, what we were doing for, as you point out, 150 years, is we've been kind of saying that evidence of students accumulating and then regurgitating back the accumulation of that knowledge equals learning. But then when you talk to people, they're like, well, but what's really important is creating, critically functioning, well informed citizens who know how to make sense of the problems in the world. And we're not sure exactly if kids can do that, but in the meantime, we're going to say that because they could remember 45 out of 50 facts, we think that they're ready.
Right. Exactly. Whether they can actually use that knowledge to solve the problems we have, that's not really important in the current education policy environment.
Right, right. And so, you're putting that out there. Okay, so look, it's behind the, you can now finally see the sausage. You can look behind the curtain. You can see who the wizard really is. Guess what? Factual what do you want to say? Factual regurgitation is no indicator of learning, of application, of critical thought, of, functioning in a diverse society with complex cultural problems, environmental issues, scientific things. That was us doing the best we could at the time, assuming that, hey, if you know a lot, you must know how to do something with knowing a lot. Chris?
Right. Yes. Look, the memorization regurgitation was never effective. It's only effective in policymakers' minds because it's easy to measure. But in the real world, right, we actually have to accomplish things. So that's where I think that the hands-on use of knowledge, that's where these tools come in, because we can spend less time
Mhm.
on memorization, regurgitation, and more time on application, creation, and innovation. And that's really where we need to go. That's where the world has gone. The economic world is there. Okay. If we want to really prepare students for the future, we need to move in that direction.
Well, so thinking about that, right? You made this, problem-based learning. People are always talking about that. Yeah, it's real life. Let's give kids real life experiences, and that's, guess what? And I've seen really great educators pull that off with so much effort, and then, sadly, sometimes a lot of so much kind of derision from colleagues or the society of going, what are you doing spending so much time with these students doing this stuff? I mean, they're not learning to read the right way. They're not learning to do math. And here though, Chris, it's like I also see like AI allowing teachers, giving them the power to create truly problem-based types of situational learning like they never could before in the past. And
The AI is an outstanding efficiency tool, and I think it supercharges teacher planning and instruction.
absolutely, man. Oh, okay. And if you're still out there thinking, I don't know if I really want to come clean, it's Busted Pencils. It's your time. You are an AI user. We want to know it. Well, we are here too. More with Dr. Chris Tienken when we get back. Oh, it's the headbanging time. It's Busted Pencils, fully leaded education talk. Educated educators talking education with, Dr. Chris Tienken and Jacob and Dr. Johnny Lupinacci. We got him back. Chris, though, okay, so a lot of what we've done the first two halves is kind of, I guess, potentially maybe even pushed kind of our view that everything's awesome. AI is going to be the best thing in the world. That is not to say that we're not aware of, and in fact, there's a lot to be cautious about in this moment. And you have some pretty good like principles of if we're going to use AI, what should we be thinking about?
Right. I don't want I don't want the listeners to think that they've entered an AI revival meeting here.
Yeah.
There are certainly a lot of promises. Okay, but there are also some perils. So when I work with teachers and leadership teams on integrating AI effectively and ethically and professionally into the curriculum, there's a few principles that I give them. Number one, view AI as a personal assistant, a support, not a replacement. So you use it as a support, as a personal assistant, but it should never replace you. Number two, anything that comes out of AI, anything that is created by AI, you always need to critique, revise, and customize it before using it with children. You never want to let the AI come between you and the student. So it shouldn't be teaching for you, actively teaching for you. You really need to look at if you do use it for grading, the way that you use it, because you got to keep in mind, AI doesn't know your students. It may give quote unquote correct feedback, but that might not be the feedback that student needs at that moment. It can't give targeted feedback like an education professional. And the final thing is, as I've said publicly before, these things are privacy dumpster fires. We really need to be careful about the information that you put in there. So as I tell educators, never put anything identifiable about yourself or your students. And I'm talking, birth dates, names, ages, keep it all very anonymous.
Johnny, you're like, okay, man, thank God I'm here to break up this revival.
No, I'm coming in late, but always honored to be part of the process of witnessing this, listening to it with our listeners, and being part of the conversation. It's great. Chris, just a follow up. I know I'm late to always the AI stuff, but it's been like Tim and I have been kicking it back and forth. It's been such a powerful tool in a lot of educational contexts and part of discussions teachers are having. And I think they've been really great discussions, like how are we going to be engaging with this tool? And I like those principles you just laid out for us, right? It's, I think, a really good guideposts to make sure we're considering, as you know, we're moving fast with this stuff, but not without thought. And Chris, I until just recently had never thought of the privacy thing. That might have been my own blinders, but recently, I've been reading statements that like publishers or different people have been putting together and, requesting. And part of my job, I do a lot of reviewing articles. And, that's a lot of like reading what people are proposing and kind of they're sharing their research with some trust that like it's in the care of reviewers. And, I recently read a post saying like, please don't use AI. Please don't put these manuscripts into AI. And I've been in some workshops about, grading papers and like, can AI help, writing instructors be better graders or give better feedback? And I think this privacy issue is key, like thinking about like, if you do utilize these tools, how do you utilize them with care and knowledge of this? So that's my long-winded way. Chris, could you elaborate on that privacy piece a little bit more for listeners out there who are like, wait a minute, what if I'm engaging in like maybe student writing going in there, or why be careful about that privacy thing?
Sure. I'm going to give you an example that just occurred in August. Some of your listeners may be even aware of this. So, thousands of chats from ChatGPT users ended up locatable in Google searches. I think it was in August. So now consider the teacher who puts in students' IEPs into ChatGPT and
Right.
good-hearted, looking for suggestions. What are some great ways that I can work with this student? But now the IEP ends up in a Google search. So that's the kind of thing I tell teachers: if you don't know where the data is going, then it's not private, and we don't know where the data are going. So nothing is private. So just never use student names, never anything, identifiers, anything like that. Even in our own personal lives, everything's got to be anonymous, because if you don't know where it's going, that means it's probably searchable and public.
And what a great example too, because what a thoughtful way that can help like a teacher who's maybe, reading an IEP. That's an individualized educational plan, so the learner has some accommodations necessary. Teachers reading this, totally like Chris just pointed out, right? Like a good-hearted approach. What can I do differently to help this young person learn fractions, right? And AI can probably give you some ideas. And like you said too, like don't take it as like, we can play on that word of like this being a revival meeting. Don't take it as gospel, get some suggestions and kind of talk with others about it and think through it. But it can help out a lot with those things. So great tip too, like engage with these tools, but with knowledge of how important it is to maintain that confidentiality of that student's identity and their individualized education plan and things like that. Maybe it's like a behavior plan or any of those kinds of things.
But think about that though too, Chris. I mean, what I think you're saying though too is there is power in the AI to be incredibly helpful with quote an IEP. However, as a professional educator, that means you have responsibilities to protect the identity of that student, but you can quote create kind of like a mock IEP minus identifiers that then you could throw in and say, help me out, AI.
Sure. And AI has the capability to break down learning barriers for students in ways that we didn't have access to, or it took too long. Now it doesn't take any time at all. But you as the educator, you still have to have a professional knowledge base. You still need to know the questions to ask and why you're asking them. So I think, again, there's a lot of promise, but you have to be aware of the perils. The other thing that I tell teachers is if your district does not have a clear policy on AI use with students, do not use it with students. That's a district responsibility to lay out the ground rules, lay out the guardrails for things that are used with students by teachers. So if your district doesn't have a policy, don't use it with students.
Well, with that one, then, Chris, too, I mean, I know a lot of the work you do is with educational leaders. What are they saying as you're talking to them about that? I mean, tell us what principals and superintendents are grappling with at this moment.
Yeah. So look, everybody is grappling with what should be in a policy. I mean, a lot of places have policies, but a lot still do not have policies. And so the questions I'm getting is what should be in the policy? How do you develop a policy for a tool that is always changing? And I tell them you have to come back to principles of education that aren't going to change. Again, for example, you need to review everything that comes out of AI. That's not going to change. As a professional educator, that is your responsibility.
Well, there's that. Yeah. Wow. I mean, and so this is to understand, Johnny. Before you were here, though, Jacob and Chris and we all publicly announced that we are AI users and we set ourselves free. So I don't know if you want to take this moment to also become part of the group. We're not anonymous here, though. But you know what, though, Chris, as we go back though to the potential promise, one of the things that you had the opportunity to listen to the podcast with Mike Bigley, one of the superintendents in up in rural Wisconsin, where they are what we feel is doing some really kind of truly groundbreaking work with AI. What do you think?
Well, sure. When I listened to Mike, the first thing that came to my mind was they are using AI to go from aspirational to operational. We all have these wonderful dreams of what education can be. That's the aspirations. We got to make them operational. And I think using AI the way that his district is helps to do that. It helps to personalize the learning for students. It helps to problematize the learning for students. And it sounds as if he is really moving the district is really moving in the direction of using knowledge, applying knowledge creatively and innovatively.
Yeah, I know that's kind of, and Johnny, you got to, and we didn't share this one. Johnny, you got to interview one of the other superintendents up there.
Oh,
Johnny.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, absolutely. I did, man. We had a great conversation about the awesome things happening, and very similar. It resonates with this conversation of educational leaders, school teachers, even parents involved in that, and including students, how they're experiencing. We are all engaging in what is this powerful tool? How is it helping make education better? And what are some of the limitations and pitfalls? And how do we navigate that? It's been a good ongoing conversation.
I think
Chris,
to Johnny's,
go ahead, Chris.
But I think to Johnny's point, how do we navigate it? I think we can use the Kim principle, and that's keep kids in mind when you are deploying a tool like that. If we always keep the student at the center of our thinking, better things will happen.
I couldn't agree with that more, man. The best technology is the technology that helps kids stay engaged, right? It's in their hands, it's in their engagement. You can hand me a bunch of more technology and I'm not going to be necessarily a more effective teacher, but when the kids are learning and they're engaged in it and together we're doing that, great things can happen.
And yeah, and that engagement piece, I know, man, holy crap, Chris, we're almost out of time with you. Chris, we also, though, have you seen the coming out of what the Alpha School, the 2-hour learning phenomena? And, we actually interviewed what we would call a principal, but the head of their high school in Austin. And really, because I think that they are, whatever it is with private and it costs a lot of money, but they are taking on the engagement aspect that has been a real problem in education.
Sure. And Tim, I think part of that, I don't know enough. I haven't been to that school, and I'd also like to see things 5 and 10 years from now. But a big advantage they have is they're not under state standards and state testing. They're not trapped under the 1895 paradigm.
Oh man, nice bringing that back, Chris, like that, and going, okay, please, public school leaders, actually not even leaders, policymakers, set us free so we can do some darn good work. Chris, As always, man, thanks for busting pencils with us.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Not a problem. When we get back, Tim and Johnny and Jacob, we're going to break it down. We're back.
Hey.
BustED Pencils, fully leaded education talk. Educated educators talking education. Dr. Johnny Lupinacci, Jacob, chairman of the boards, me, Dr. Tim Slekar. And what a great guest. Love having Chris on. Always bringing us, something to think about. He, again, is, out there working with education leaders, doing all that work and just being able to, to comment, to see the promise of AI as a really powerful moment that could really reshape how we're doing education, but then also making sure to remind us of the perils, the potential pitfalls. But Johnny, more importantly, the professional responsibility that comes with, the work we do as educators. We got to always be thinking about these things, and that's what I liked about what Chris was saying. Is like, hey, this is a great, okay, use the word tool, a great learning device, but your principles, your responsibilities, your professionalism, you got to keep that in front and center. I mean, that's what I heard him saying. Johnny.
Yeah, and I love that because I love that aspect of it because it's actually really important in anything in life, especially when we talk about being an educator or being a citizen in a democracy. There's some responsibilities that come with that, and there's ethical dimensions, and really every action has a consequence. So knowing what those potential consequences are is informed decision making, and this is no different. It's just that technology moves so fast.
I know.
And actually in this context, it speeds up the work. So it gets kind of exciting as a tool. I'm like, man, wow, like this is really helpful. Like this is a pretty powerful tool. And I love the times where educators talk with other educators about, okay, so its potential are all these things. How does that play out? And what are the principles? Right? Not the PAL kind, not the principals who are like helping come up with these, policies in their districts, but the principals, right? The PLES version of the word. What are those sort of guiding rules of thumb? I guess that's not the best metaphor to use all the time because of the history of what that phrase actually stands for. That could be another trivia sometime down the line on, and maybe a producer's choice. But the whole idea being like, hey, what's good about this? What do we want to keep and put to use? And what are some of the, do's and don'ts? What's the better watch out about that. So that's gonna emerge from these kinds of conversation, from research around how do we use AI, and teachers talking with other teachers, and school leaders talking with other school leaders and their teachers and students and parents. Like a good old fashioned democratic discussion, kind of like a town hall meeting per se, about how are we using AI? How is it using us? And where do we kind of fit in between those things?
But you gave a really great kind of lead into that of an inspired, enthusiastic, seeing the potential, working with AI, a teacher, and just really going, wow, this is great. And then kind of where Chris was going and going, oh my God, if I'm going to take this IEP and I'm going to throw it in because, man, it could give me amazing feedback and ideas. And again, fully from the standpoint of saying, wanting to do best by the student, but then going like, whoa, hold on. take a moment. And that's where, boy, I mean, Chris bringing that up, and then the way you talked about it, it's just like, like anybody, like, get so excited because of the good you're doing.
Yeah, it moves
that
fast.
and then the fast, but then the potential of going like, oh wait, crap, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, and then I also really like how he talked about if there's not a policy in your school or school district, don't use it. And so I like being in that position, being like, well, then we have to voice, hey, we need a policy so that we can engage with this tool because, get with the times. It's in every student's, technologies. It's in our classroom, but we need some collective responsibility around how we use it. So getting those policies in place. Again, technology moves fast. It's part of our responsibility to figure out those ethical dimensions and sort of fair use principles. So love that shout out that Chris gave us too on that. Like, hey, remember, use it, but use it with permission.
John, speaking of moving fast, man, I got to see you on the ice, man, because from what I understand, Johnny Lupinacci is like Quicksilver on the ice. But enough of that. Now it's time for your moment of zen. To be hopeful in bad times is not just foolishly romantic. It is based on the fact that human history is a history not only of cruelty, but also of compassion, sacrifice, courage, and kindness.
Hey, thanks for listening to BustED Pencils broadcast today. And remember to grab great podcasts chock full of more fully leaded education talk on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and of course, on the Civic Media website. And don't be late for our homeroom on Monday. And make sure you catch next week's class in session on Wednesday. And find us on Friday for, of course, producer Jacob's Choice special shows. And just like today, you can catch BustED Pencils at 3 p.m. Central Time across all the Civic Media Network stations for 1 hour of your favorite blue-collar scholars, Tim and Johnny, and keep busting pencils.